History. It is 8:40 right now. Welcome back to CW Iowa Live. Michael Jenkins joining us in studio. Of course, he is a bankruptcy attorney trying to make some heads and tails out of the world of bankruptcy. And we're going to pick up where we left off last time. But again, let's put things in a nutshell. We just discussed this, Michael, before the cameras turned on, between Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Some people will automatically say one or the other, and they might be misunderstood as to what they really need to file for. Now, Chapter 7, let's see if I've been paying attention, means you want to eliminate the debts that you have. And then Chapter 13 is you want to eliminate the debts that you have, but you want to pay them back in some way.
I think Lou will get an A- for today.
A-, okay, all right, okay.
So, yeah, in a Chapter 13, the premise of it is that you don't necessarily go in wanting to eliminate any debt. The premise is that you want to go in and pay your debts back. And so for some people, it's not a full repayment because you only pay back what you can afford to in the maximum time period allowed. But in many situations, a person pays back all of their debt. And so they accomplish what they set out to do. So basically the big difference between 7 and 13 is, one, you're getting rid of your unsecured debt, and one, you're paying them. To what extent, that remains to be seen. So
let's talk 13. Let's pick up on 13.
So in Chapter 13, this is going to be a debt repayment program. Some people call it a consolidation. Others call it a restructuring. But it's a completely different type of bankruptcy than Chapter 7 because you are, in fact, paying your debts.
Now, Michael, people hear that term consolidation type things, and they might immediately go to what they may have seen or heard, saying, oh, consolidation, I've seen what that's all about. This is something a little bit different than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the consolidation that people see advertised or come into their emails unsolicited are debt settlement companies, people that are trying to solicit your business to hire them to settle your debts. That isn't a good thing, and I recommend somebody never actually do one of those. Now, that isn't to be confused with very good and legitimate companies that are like Consumer Credit of Des Moines, and there's other companies like them. What they do has very many similarities to Chapter 13. You, in fact, are at Consumer Credit, you are asking the credit card companies to negotiate a little bit with you where you reduce your interest rates to a more manageable number. And I think sometimes they maybe even do it at 0% interest. I don't know how common that is, but the creditors in Consumer Credit's programs, they got to agree to participate.
Okay.
In Chapter 13, there's no agreement. If you don't participate, you don't get paid. And then you don't have any recourse later on. Whereas at Consumer Credit, if you don't participate, you can still pursue the person in court for the money and engage in collection activity. So you got the power of the court behind you in Chapter 13.
Got it. All right.
Now, as there were conditions to get into Chapter 7, there's also conditions to get into Chapter 13 or to sustain a Chapter 13. Now, for Chapter 7 conditions, real briefly, you had to either be below the median income to qualify to file Chapter 7, or if you were above the median income, then you had to pass what we call the means test. You cannot have had a previous Chapter 7 within the last 8 years, otherwise you can't get into Chapter 7 again. And then you have to have enough debt to file Chapter 7 so that you're not essentially wasting your money.
You want to be careful about using this, right?
Right.
It's a great tool, but again, you want to use it when you have to.
It's a great get out of jail card free, so you don't want to use it for jaywalking.
You don't want to waste it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the conditions for Chapter 13 are probably the most important condition. You have to have a regular source of income coming in to pay these debts. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be from wages. That's certainly the most common, or self-employment. Other forms of regular income would be Social Security if you chose to use it.
I was going to say, what else is there then? Okay.
Retirement or pension checks that come in on a regular basis. Some people are receiving disability insurance checks for a lengthy period of time, if not forever. even workers' compensation regular payments, although those are not indefinite and do come to a conclusion.
But you have to have money coming in, though, right?
But you have to have a regular income within which to pay these debts. Otherwise, it's sort of a non-starter. Now, the thing of it is, most people aren't looking to get into Chapter 13 if they don't have a regular income.
Right.
The only exception would be if someone's losing their home in a foreclosure and they're trying to save it. Chapter 13 is a great way to do it. And so we do get people call us. I want to save my house with the Chapter 13. I've seen your TV programs on CW where you've talked about that before. I've read your website. And then we go over their income, and I go, what are you living on? And I go, well, I got $1,200 a month in Social Security, and what else? No, $1,200 a month in Social Security.
That's it.
Well, that isn't going to be enough income. So not only do you have to have income coming in every month, it's got to be enough.
A sustainable amount.
A sustainable amount to accomplish the goals that you seek to accomplish in Chapter 13. So that's the most important thing. Now, there's some technical conditions. The unsecured creditors in your Chapter 13 have to receive as much money as they would have gotten if you took Chapter 7. And so you might be thinking, well, how does that happen? Well, I thought we don't have to pay anything. Well, if you're in a Chapter 7 and you have non-exempt assets or things that you own that aren't protected that the trustee in the Chapter 7 could sell and liquidate, that money goes to the unsecured creditors.
Got it.
Now in Chapter 13, you get to keep that stuff. You don't lose it, but the creditors who are unsecured have to receive as much as they would have got if you'd gone Chapter 7. Most of the time, that's not going to be very much money. So in the majority of cases, that isn't a very big hurdle to overcome.
So you get to keep your stuff, but you still have to pay the amount you would have received if you would have had to sell it.
Exactly, and that's
if
an
you
actual
had to
benefit.
liquidate it, yeah.
And that's an actual benefit of Chapter 13. You get to keep all your stuff. Now, another condition that's kind of important, there's certain types of debts in Chapter 13 that must be paid in full. Now, the general unsecured debts do not. But if you've got back child support, your case cannot be approved unless you've got enough money coming into it to pay that whole amount back if you have arrearages. Another debt that must be paid back is if you've got income taxes from federal or state that are incurred within the last 3 years. We call that priority debt, just like the child support is. That's a technical term. Those debts must be paid in full during your Chapter 13. So if you've got tax debt right now from 2016, 2015, and 2014, and it's $10,000 or $12,000, there must be enough money coming into your Chapter 13 so that all gets paid in full.
Got it.
Now, another condition is it's not so much a legal condition, it's a common sense condition, just like we have in the Chapter 7. If you don't have enough debt, again, it's not necessarily worth going into Chapter 13. So if we've got a situation where you got $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 of unsecured debt, maybe that would have been good for Chapter 7 and we could have still justified filing it, but Chapter 13 is a much more costly form of bankruptcy than Chapter 7 is at times. And so again, I refer people sometimes to go to consumer credit to deal with the debt if they have to and they don't qualify for Chapter 7, maybe because they filed 5 years before and can't do it again. So Chapter 13 isn't going to work because it's just too costly to justify the expense, and sometimes people would be better off going to consumer credit and getting protection from their creditors that way.
And you're not opposed to giving that type of advice?
No, we tell people that all the time.
Right.
You know, sometimes consumer credit's a better program because you're not paying fees that you would incur in doing Chapter 13. Mm-hmm. When we do Chapter 13, the fees are generally well worth it because of the amount of debt that people are dealing with, and they have other problems that are being dealt with too, so it's worth it. Now, another requirement to get into Chapter 13 is you have to have filed all your tax returns for the last 4 years. And one might think, well, that's not that big of a deal, and generally it's not. But from time to time, we have clients come in and they haven't filed their taxes for the last 2 years, 3 years,
and that's a problem.
10 years.
And that's a problem.
And that's a problem. So we tell them, well, we can help you, but you got to get those tax returns put together and filed. And for those that want to get into Chapter 13, like if they're wanting to save their home, they get them done. There's a debt restriction in Chapter 13, and it's a very serious one. So, I mean, it doesn't come up very often, but from time to time it can be a problem. If your unsecured debt is over $394,725, you need to find a different option because you've got too much unsecured debt to participate in Chapter 13. And the secured debt limit is $1,184,000. We've never had any problem with the secured debt limit, but the unsecured, because of the vast amount of student loans that people have from time to time, we've had clients that needed to get into Chapter 13 or did get into it and got bounced because the unsecured debt limit, when the claims were filed, rose above that amount. And then that's not a good thing, and you're out.
But do you have other options for them if they came in to talk to you? Do you have other things that they might be able to do if they came in?
Not good options. There's an option of filing an individual Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which we haven't really spoken about on the show. I mean, it's a lot more complicated form of bankruptcy.
All right, but if people have any questions about this, Michael, best thing to do is get a hold of you because you'll talk to them, right?
We'll be happy to give you guidance.
All right, take a look here. Here's how you get a hold of Michael Jenkins and the Jenkins Law Firm. 255-1855 is the phone number, or they can get a hold of you online too, right?
Yep, you can reach me on the internet at www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com, or you can now follow us on Facebook.
There you go. All right, getting up with the times, huh? How about that? Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. It is 8:51, and we will be right back. You are watching CW Iowa Live in West Des Moines. See how Jackie is doing when we come back.